This afternoon, I have the privilege of going down to Holy Trinity Lutheran Church in Pleasant City and have a confirmation there of one of the young ladies there at Holy Trinity, Samantha, and she's a delightful, if quiet, teenager. You know, that's kind of an oxymoron, I guess. But she's a cute gal, and so we'll have a confirmation this afternoon. I'm happy to do that. In 2 weeks, next week is Mother's Day, but the week after that is Pentecost, and we'll have confirmation here. In this service, Dakota Jagush and Avery White will be confirmed here. That'll be also wonderful. They're good kids, I presume. My wife has been spending the bulk of the time with them in confirmation class. So she does the Sundays. She does that in Sunday school, and then she comes back with me and shakes her head and says, "I don't know if I'm getting through to them." I say, "Yeah, I know that about confirmation for a long time." Most recently, she's been dealing with them in prayer. I mean, that's been the theme. Those have been the lessons in prayer. And it's always difficult to talk about prayer, whether it's in confirmation with them or with adults or with anybody, because prayer is one of those things. They're all hard, but prayer is hard to do because there's just one way we deal with prayer in our culture is not the way the Bible talks about it at all. But we hear it all the time, and what we tend to do with almost all biblical themes, prayer included, is we tend to want to put it in sound bites or things that you can put in a plaque on the wall. And you know, if there was ever anything I would ever want to do, would be to take all wall plaques and burn them in a big pile, because most of them are wrong or not biblical. Even the ones that quote the Bible are just like, I don't want to do that. So here's the thing. Here's the thing about prayer. People talk about prayer and they say, here's what happens. You pray to God and you ask Him for things and He will answer you. He may say yes, He may say no, He may say, well, you'll have to wait a while. Okay, and I just want to slap somebody. Because that's not biblical, that's McDonald's. Because here's what happens. You know, that's like saying you go to McDonald's and you drive up to the drive-through window. That's like praying to God, and you know, you can't actually see Him. And if you hear Him, you're either lucky, or some people say you're kind of crazy because you're hearing voices. But you drive up to the drive-through thing, and you hear this voice from out of nowhere saying, "Can I take your order?" You know, and then you say, "Yes, I'd like a Big Mac, fries, and a shake." Right? And the voice will say, "You can have the Big Mac, but you're going to have to wait for the fries because we just put them down, and the shake machine is out of order, so you'll have to have a Coke." So that's how prayer works for some people, right? Sometimes God says, yes, you can have what you want. Sometimes God says, no, you can't have what you want because the shake machine is out of order. And sometimes He says, you'll have to pull up and wait and it will bring it out to you. I mean, how's it different from McDonald's? You know, that's not the Bible, that's McDonald's. And then what does the guy do? Then what happens when you say, okay, I'll have the Coke, fine. He says, that'll be $4.89. You know, and that's what happens with prayer also. You know, we seem to have this notion that somehow it'll cost us. God doesn't do things for free. Right? It'll cost us to get the things that we want from God. I mean, you know that's the case, right? And God doesn't do money. He does behaviors. I mean, that's how we do it. If we do good things, God will give us good things. If we do bad things, God will give us bad stuff. Okay? And what really fries our toast is when God gives bad things to good people. Right? I mean that's what we do, right? How is it that a hurricane destroys a church? You know? What is God up to with that? You got a whole bunch of people praying, and a tornado comes through and destroys the church. What is God up to with that? Those are good people, and this bad thing happens. It makes no sense to us because we seem to have this notion that good people, God ought to give them good stuff. And bad people, God ought to give them bad things. Because, if we're going to pay good money, we ought to get good stuff. That's the way it works in life. That ought to be the way it works with God and with prayer. It's, we commercialize everything. Okay, that's part of my rant for today. There may be more coming, or in a little bit different form. But we commercialize everything. What Jesus says in the gospel lesson, what John says in his letter, is that that's not how it ought to work. It's not a matter of commercializing. It's not a matter of making requests and God answering them. It's a matter of love like Jesus loved us. Our relationship with God is not based on what we can give Him and what we owe Him and what He owes us back. It's not based on what we ask Him and what He gives us. It's based on He loves us and we love Him. That's our relationship, what it looks like. And it looks like Jesus giving His life for us. That's what it looks like. It looks like love. Now, having said that, I don't know how much further we're getting. Because we have to redefine love. Because we don't really know what love looks like either. I don't often do weddings. Part of the problem with weddings is that the bride and the groom stand here before me and the audience, the congregation at a wedding, and they think that a wedding ought to look like, Sleeping Beauty and Prince Charming and birdies singing and flowers going, and the music swells up and it's a whole Disney thing, and lights happen and Prince Charming and all that other stuff. And maybe that's what a wedding is, but that's not what marriage is. And I try to say what marriage is, and I get in trouble like real fast. Because if I say what marriage is, then the bride and the groom get really mad at me, because then the whole congregation is laughing. Because the whole congregation knows that I'm right when I say this is what marriage is. But the bride and the groom want to say, no, marriage is all about this Hallmark kind of Disney kind of Sleeping Beauty thing. And it's going to last that way for the next 50 years. I said, no, that's why we talk about for better or worse. Because the wedding might look that way, but marriage looks like this, and you know this to be the truth. Okay? Marriage looks like this. So about 2 to 3 weeks after a couple gets married, some morning he will come out of the bathroom, and if this were ESPN in the background, there would be an ESPN commentator say, "Wow, Bill, will you look at that? He just came out of the bathroom and he didn't change the empty toilet paper roll. That was a 3-point shot he could have made easily and he blew it." And Bill says, "You're right, Ted, but he has a chance to make it up. If she reminds him that he could do it, he's got a 1-point foul shot that he could make from the line and get 1 point for that." He says, "Yeah, he could get 1 point for that unless he sasses her back. Then he'll get a technical and he won't get any points on that one." Because that's the way marriage works. Because if we're basing all our relationship with God on things like our behaviors, we base our relationships with everybody else on behaviors too, and keeping score and stuff like that. And marriage more often looks like the Cavaliers playing the Raptors than it does like Sleeping Beauty marrying Prince Charming. You didn't do this, but don't tell me you did. That's the way it works. But Jesus says, let us not think about love in terms of commercialization or in terms of keeping score. That's not the way Jesus talks about love. Jesus says, think about love in terms of what Jesus did for us. This is what his love for us looked like, and that is what love ought to look like. Now, here's a question of the day. Can you ever come close to repaying Jesus for that? I got nothing. Neither do you. You don't have anything that can come close to repaying Jesus for that. He was the Son of God. He is the Son of God. He's the King of the universe. Sits on the throne of heaven, surrounded by angels, archangels, and all the company of heaven. What do you got that can say to Jesus, here, I owe you for that. Here, let me pay. Now, come on. That's just a question of ridiculousness. You can't repay him for that. This is not a good question to ask. Jesus gave his life for you and for me, knowing that you would never be able to pay back anything even closely resembling what he did to you, for you and for me, with his death on the cross. And then he rose again from the dead to give you the promise of eternal life, that you and I would be able to live forever with him in heaven, knowing that there would be nothing that you and I could, here, Jesus, I'll slip you a 20 for that. Come on, that's not going to happen. Well, what's he going to do with that? As an outright gift to us from him. No behavior on our part, no amount of behaviors on our part, no lifetime of good deed doings on our part is ever going to be able to make up for that. It's just an outright gift from him to us. So when Jesus says in the gospel lesson, or John writes in the other one, my command is that you love one another, now we got a big problem. And the big problem is this. The way Lutherans sometimes think about these things is, I got to say, that's a pretty heavy-duty law statement, because the law, when we talk about law in the Bible, it means anything in the Bible that says, here's something that you need to do that you absolutely cannot do. And that's law, and that means that God will send you to hell because you can't do it. So, when Jesus says, love one another as I have loved you, here's the issue. This is how Jesus loved me. And there is no way that I can love you that way. There's no way that I can repay him for that. And there's no way that I can do that for any of you. I can't even do that for my wife. I can't even change the toilet paper roll when I know that's what she wants me to do. Okay? How am I going to do that? I mean, get serious. The gates of hell are standing wide open waiting for me to come in. And probably you too. I can't do that. But Jesus says, love one another that way. That's his command, right? But it's because Jesus loved us that way that it doesn't mean if you don't do that, you're going to hell. It's because Jesus loved us that way that I can be assured, and you all can be assured, that if you don't change the toilet paper roll, you're not going to go to hell, okay? Not because it's a trivial thing, but because Jesus forgives that sin and covers it over with his grace and his mercy and his righteousness, and says that love is not about transactions. It's not about paying. It's not about owing. It's not about keeping score. Because we can't keep score adequately all the time. We can't do what we think we should do all the time. We can't do everything consistently all the time. Sometimes we will mess up, and it's okay. Love is not about keeping score. Love is not about paying what we owe. Love is not about saying, I did this, now you owe me. Love, in Jesus' terms, is never about that. Love is about giving without expectations. Love is about this sacrifice for us who are the children. No, love isn't even about that sacrifice for us who are the children of God. Love is about that sacrifice when we were enemies of God, as St. Paul says in one of his letters. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And love, as far as Jesus is concerned, is about doing that so that the Holy Spirit could do this to make us children of God. And that just blows everything out of the water, what we think love and relationships ought to be about. It has nothing to do with keeping score, making payments, anything like that, or what you owe or what you don't owe. Love is just about imitating Jesus. And looking at him one day and saying, I think I could do that. And knowing that if you don't do that, he forgives you. And you get another chance tomorrow or the next hour or the next minute or whatever it is. That's what love is. You know, they say it's an imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. That's like little kids when they're learning new things. You know, you say to them, do what I do. And you keep working at them until they're able to do it. And sometimes they get it right and sometimes they don't, and eventually they do get it right. And that's the way we love, like Jesus did. We just imitate Jesus. It's not a matter of doing everything exactly right all the time. It's just a matter of keeping on imitating Jesus, who first loved us. And how do we love one another? We just keep on imitating Jesus. Not to rack up scores, but until we look like him more and more all the time. Will I ever love my wife to do that? I don't know. Possibly not. Or maybe there'll be momentary things for which she'll get a glimpse and say, yeah, that looked a little bit like that. But that's not the point. The point is that Jesus did that for me and for her and for you. So that you and I would say, that's what love ought to look like. We give ourselves without expectation, without hope, without owing, just because we love one another. That's the only reason. In Jesus' name, amen.